and the championship, Chapter 40, entitled The Four Domes of the Universe. The science fair was going as well as could be expected. Two of the most vocal critics of potato chips, Mrs. Breed and Dr. Parmigiano, were considerably less hostile to Mr. Sparks and his single substance curriculum. Still, the battle wasn't over. Leon would have to pull a rabbit out of his hat to neutralize Lumpkin Sr. and to win over Principal Birdwhistle. He had set up at the last exhibit table for tactical reasons. He now waited for his turn to fulfill the potato chip pact. "So, Leon," said Mr. Sparks when that fateful moment came, "what are you serving us?" "I'm quite certain we all know what Leon is serving," said Principal Birdwhistle. "I doubt it," said Leon. He pulled back his bedsheet to reveal 4 domed food warmers on loan from the Trimore Towers coffee shop. "My science fair exhibit tells the history of the universe." "Well, I'll say one thing for you," said Principal Birdwhistle. "You're certainly ambitious." "Thousands of years ago," Leon began, "before we had telescopes and satellites, people thought the Earth and the whole universe was shaped like this." He lifted the first of the 4 metal domes to reveal a pancake. "The little stinker cooked it all himself," Frau Haffenreffer announced proudly. Leon blushed. "The pancake theory lasted a really long time, all the way up until the Greeks. But then, around AD 150, Claudius Ptolemaeus, alias Ptolemy, hypothesized that the universe had a different shape. He believed it looked like this." Leon lifted the second of the 4 metal domes. "An onion?" said Principal Birdwhistle. "Yup," said Leon. "Ptolemy thought the Earth was at the center of a giant onion-shaped universe, and that all the planets, as well as the sun, circled around the Earth in orbits that resembled the layers of this onion." "What about the stars?" said Mr. Sparks asked. "The stars were stuck onto the outer layer," Leon said, tapping on the onion skin. He stepped in front of the 3rd metal dome. "Now, fast forward to 1609. That's when Galileo used a telescope to find a bunch of moons no one had ever seen before. Galileo also confirmed that the Earth was not the center of the universe. Fast forward again. Relying on Galileo's work, 20th century astronomers decided that the universe might not be shaped like an onion after all. They figured it was shaped like this." Leon lifted the 3rd of the 4 domes. "A glazed donut?" sneered Lumpkin Sr. "Well, they didn't say the universe was glazed," said Leon, "but they did argue that it was shaped like a big fat ring, which they called a torus, to sound more scientific." Mr. Sparks nodded knowingly, but did not say a word. Leon took another step and planted himself in front of the 4th and final dome. "That brings me to the theory of the universe I think is the coolest, the one first proposed by Einstein. He hypothesized that the universe has a negatively curved surface." Leon reached for the 4th of the 4 domes, but was stopped by a sudden challenge. "A negatively curved surface?" Lumpkin Sr. bellowed. "Give me a break." "Mr. Lumpkin, please," said Principal Birdwhistle. "Do allow the boy to complete his presentation." "What's to complete? I mean, come on. Pancakes, onions, donuts. Is this a science exhibit or a grocery list? You're not really buying this negative curve crud, are you, Teach?" "Actually," said Mr. Sparks, "Leon's overview of the universe is grounded in complex higher mathematics." "You don't say," Lumpkin Sr. said sarcastically. Mr. Sparks finally had had enough. "I do say, Mr. Lumpkin, and what's more, I say someone needs to be taught a lesson about mathematics and manners." Lumpkin Sr. cracked his knuckles. "Go ahead, Teach," he snarled. "Educate me." "Gentlemen, please," Principal Birdwhistle said nervously. Her remarks went unnoticed. Mr. Sparks let loose. The surface you're so positive doesn't exist, Mr. Lumpkin, is part of a hyperbolic paraboloid that can be represented by the formula z equals x squared minus y squared, or better still, z equals a to the x squared minus y squared, where a is a relatively small constant, say a equals 0.1. The sum of the angles of a triangle on this surface would be less than 180 degrees, contrary to what Euclid might have taught us. This means that it has negative curvature, a whole branch of mathematics called Lobachevskian geometry is devoted to such shapes about which you are completely and totally and hopelessly clueless. So keep your ill-informed opinions to yourself, Mr. Lumpkin, and grant Leon and his classmates the courtesy and the respect they deserve. Mr. Sparks' tongue lashing left Lumpkin Sr. speechless. Boy, oh boy, said Emma Zeisel. Talk about watching sparks fly. Leon waited for the snickers to subside before resuming his presentation. Just in case you didn't catch everything Mr. Sparks was saying, I have an example of a negatively curved surface that might be easier to understand. He reached for the fourth and final dome, but stopped before revealing the object underneath. Hold on, he said. It's Mr. Sparks who should do the honors. Everyone knew what was coming, but when it came, it was still a shocker. Mr. Sparks lifted the fourth and final dome and exposed a perfectly formed, negatively curved potato chip of the saddle-shaped variety. PW started a quiet chant. Chips, chips, chips. His classmates joined in, and the chant slowly grew louder. Chips, 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 and louder still. Chips, 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 chips. Mr. Sparks, said Principal Birdwhistle, please control your students. I'm not sure I can. Besides, Hortensia, it's not just students who need controlling. Emma Zeisel was the first adult to join the chorus. Then Maria chimed in. Then Napoleon, Frau Hafenreffer, and Regina Jaspro. Then the Davanadanas, the Warchowskis, and the short, round man with the official-looking briefcase. Eventually, even Mrs. Breed and Dr. Parmigiano joined the one-syllable cheer. Leon sensed the tide was turning. This is it, he told himself. Time for the last exhibit. And so, as the chant began to die down, he gave the short, round man a sign.